It is Costo's Corner, ladies and gentlemen. At Costo Jason. That's his Twitter handle. And you're back in the home of origin, New South Wales, mate.
No, Pinocchio, I am not.
Right. Lachlan just told me you're back in New Zealand. Are you back in Brisbane? You're back north of Brisbane?
No, I'm in New South Wales, but the home of origin is Queensland, and it always will be. Okay, so let's just get... Get Marty, give yourself an uppercut, brother.
Well, mate, I live in hope, and I always live in hope, and I thought there's no...
Well, mate, you can live in hope, but the facts are the facts. Okay, so, and I actually tweeted something this morning, and I want your listeners to be across this. I'm not one to gloat, but there was times when I came to New South Wales when I thought, Queensland, we're struggling for players. We don't have the depth. We don't have the talent. Well, since the NRL came together, as in what happened after the Super League divide, New South Wales, as in the Blues, we're talking about the men's. I'll come to the women's game last night in a moment if I can. But in terms of the men's state of origin, the Blues, they've only held the trophy, or the shield, I should say, 8 times, I kid you not, 8 times since the NRL started in 1998.
Well, that doesn't surprise me, Jace. And watching what I saw the other night was absolutely encapsulated by a goon called Jerome Luai. And then his social media posts afterwards. But Greg Martin was saying there, and I think this is really significant, and I know people probably will think, it doesn't mean anything. When the national anthem plays and all the Queenslanders got their arms around each other and they're all together as one, and he deliberately isolates himself and stands there by himself, look at me, look at me. And this is the way the guy plays, the way he plays Origin. He's not an Origin player. And to me, I mean, he's wearing a lot of flack and he deserves it. But to me, that just epitomises the difference between Queensland, who are together, and the Blues, who never are.
Look, I'm not going to get into how players react to the national anthem and prepare for a game and what goes on in their heads, because everybody's different. But what I will say this, and you've heard it from others before, and you're going to hear it again, and it'll sound like a broken record, but Origin means more to Queenslanders than New South Wales.
Yeah, it does. Clearly.
And people can argue the toss south of the tweed till the cows come home, but it does, and it goes back to those old colonial days, the chip on the shoulder, big brother versus little brother. And what Reece Walsh said going back a few weeks ago, they think they own the game in Sydney. Well, that's how most people in Queensland think. I hate to break it to people who have allegiances to teams wearing blue, but that's how most of my brothers think, whether they're intergenerational Queenslanders, whether they're First Nations people. Remembering I was up in the Torres Strait last week. We had people from the Torres Strait. It was their trip of a lifetime. I know of people who went to Origin for the first time during the week at the Cauldron. And it was like a dream come true. It was like going on a rocket ride to the moon, and something that they'll tell their family members and next of kin and brothers and aunties and uncles what a fairy tale it was, and to be at Suncorp that when we beat the Blues and won the series. I still can't believe the authorities don't give the shield to the winning team when it's 2-0. For Queensland to go to Sydney next month, and it works both ways. If Queensland were to lose game 3...
Stop complaining about something there's nothing to complain about. Come on.
Marty, I'll tell you something. We're talking about something here that'll get talked about in the lead up to game 3. So we can talk about it now, or we can follow the others like the others like sheep, because it's going to come up in conversation that's morally wrong. It'd be like Australia winning the Ashes 4-1, and the Poms win the last test at the Oval and they present the Aussies, with the Ashes. That's just wrong. I think once you've won the series, you win the series, you should get the silverware.
No, I got nothing, mate. I'm so disappointed. I mean, I really look, after the first game, we honestly thought, okay, with 12 men, 12 minutes to go, all you got to do is batten the hatches and you just got to shut the game down. They were incapable of doing that. Losing Nathan Cleary, that was always going to be a big position to fill. But this is a Blues side that Look, when it just comes to it, it comes down to desire and to want, and all of those airy-fairy terms which we all say don't matter. It's like when the Crusaders played the Chiefs this weekend, mate. We saw the Crusaders belt the Blues in rugby last week. It was exactly the same. A Blues side full of talent, full of All Blacks, turned up and didn't turn up, if you know what I mean. And that's what we saw again. And look, hats off to you, Jace. I got nothing, mate. The thing I love about sport is it tells you everything about life. And this is a lesson. I mean, this is a lesson in what do you believe in, what do you commit to, what is important to you.
I'll tell you something. Look, what I will say about the two teams between Queensland and New South Wales, the New South Wales team, from memory, only had 2 players in Game 2 that came from west of the Great Divide. That's the range that separates the coast from the western communities, the inland places. You look at the Queensland team, they come from the length and the breadth of the state. Yeah, I know there was one player, I believe, from the New South Wales Northern Rivers near the border with Queensland, but you know, the Queensland, we talk about origin all the time. You know, productivity in Queensland went up a notch yesterday because of state of origin. People came to school happy. Kids are talking about it at the tuck shop. People are talking about it in offices, in the banks, at the butcher shop, at the pub. You know, and you can go, I could take you and your listeners, I could say, Marty, let's go on the, you know, It's Only Sport roadshow on a tour.
Yeah, what a wonderful thing to do.
We could leave Brisbane. You could do your show in 5 different towns or cities. Let's say Brisbane on Monday. We could go to, I don't know, Birdsville in the outback on the Tuesday. Wednesday, we could be in Rockhampton. Thursday, we could go to, I don't know, an Indigenous community like, I don't know, maybe Bardu Island in the Torres Strait, and then finish in Mount Isa and in the outback in the radio capital. Guess what? You'll see it. Everyone lives and breathes it. And I think the fact that we've got players that come from the bush, as we call it in the Australian vernacular, Marty, in layman terms, I'll dumb it down. That's so we've got players that are tough, and they've dealt with hardship and tyranny of distance and economic disadvantage, and also the geographic challenges of getting to school and going to, you know, starting your career and whatnot. The desire, that concept of walking over hot coals for the jersey, hard to quantify, hard to explain for people that haven't grown up outside big cities. And in Queensland, there's a lot of people that don't live in the state capital, Brisbane. So it's a big mismatch in terms of the way we are and what's in our DNA.
Let us get on to then game by game, round 17. And it's all underway tonight, Dragons versus Warriors. I'm confident, but I'm also a little wary about this one.
Well, I haven't put up my tips on my Twitter, the Costo Jason, yet, but you know, the Warriors don't seem... I'll rephrase. The Warriors seem very comfortable when they go on the road under the current coaching staff. You know, the resilience of the Warriors has been one of the great stories of this year under Coach Webster. And how Ben Hunt reacts and comes back from the highs of origin. Look, don't forget, there's a big question mark on which players are going to be backing up for their respective clubs. But forgetting that, putting that aside, I'm on the Warriors under 12. I think they're playing good football. They've surprised everybody, including me. And I think they can keep it going. And I think the Dragons will be doing it tough against a team that wants it more, and it's very well coached. And don't forget, the Dragons, they sacked their coach. Carr is the caretaker coach, the fill-in coach. There's some people death riding the Dragons to collect the wooden spoon. There's a fair bit of water to pass under the bridge between now and then, but putting that aside, I think the Warriors are a sure bet, 1-12.
Last 6 games, Jace, 94 points conceded, an average of 15.6 a game. If the Warriors can do that and keep them to 15 points, they win this game. 3 games on Saturday, people. Dolphins, Eels, Panthers, Knights, Storm, Seagulls. So let's start with the Dolphins, Eels. And this is an Eels side. Look, I've been laughing and writing off all year, but they just seem to be getting on a roll. They've won 8, they've lost 7. They're sitting there in 5th spot.
Well, he had some friends on Wednesday night in Brisbane, but Mitchell Moses was found to be out of his depth, highly inadequate. And I would have thought that he would like to play this game tonight, because he would be thinking, I was supposed to do a job with your mate Luai, and it didn't work out. So, look, I'm going to get on Parramatta here. I think Parramatta with Moses, I'm expecting Moses to come out and play one of his best games of the season, a likely man of the match. And I think Parramatta will win the game 1-12. There you go.
Yeah, look, I got no argument there because the Dolphins, it just seem so hot and cold at the moment. Panthers losing to the Cowboys. Look, I watched that Knights game against the Eagles last week. I don't know whether you watched that as well. I thought that they should have won that game, really. They kind of, no, so was it the Eagles? No. Was it the Eagles last week? Bloody hell, who was I watching? I was watching the Knights last week. No, it wasn't them. They were Roosters they were playing, I'm sorry. I thought they should have won that game. I thought they did enough to win that game. But this is away from home. This is on the road, and it's a Panthers side. And Luai has been playing well for the Panthers, I'll give him that. So it's got to be the home team, doesn't it?
Well, look, I didn't see the game against the Cowboys. I was up in the Torres Strait, but we were getting the scores coming through, and what an amazing finish. With my radio colleagues, my Indigenous brothers, they were all fascinated on how the game had so many twists and turns. Penrith will be ruining that defeat and one that got away. And again, I think for Luai and Yo, for example, this jumping back horse concept can't come enough, and I think that spells danger for the opposition. I'm expecting Penrith to put up a big score. I think it'll be a runaway victory, Penny Panthers. So the men in black 15+.
Okay, and then we get the Storm Sea Eagles, and this Sea Eagles, I mean, they've been up and down and up and down. They are the yo-yo, aren't they? They lost to the Eels last week. Previous to that, they had a fantastic performance where they put 58 points on the Dolphins. You got a Storm side that just feels like the wheels are starting to get in motion. You think that?
I believe so, and Manly losing Trebojevic for the rest of the season. You know, even the most one-eyed Queensland supporter would feel sorry for Tebow Tom.
Should he have played, though, Jace? Should he have played? Come on. I mean, he's been injured all year, really, hasn't he? He's been playing half. You know, I don't know. I don't know whether he should have been selected for that game.
Well, I don't know, but he should be doing TV commercials for Medicare. I'll tell you this much. The fact that the Blues went to Damien Cook and asked him to play centre, and then Brad Fittler came out. I don't want to backtrack too much to what we spoke about at the start, but Brad Fittler said that they had him practicing in the centres. That's Cook in the lead up to game 2. No wonder the night for Freddie and Greg Alexander. I'll tell you what, you know, mirror on the wall, who's the fairest of them all? There's mirrors that are cracking in the Blues camp. But as far as this game's concerned, Turbo Trebojevic, you know, as I said, you got to feel for the bloke mentally. I don't know how tough he is. I reckon he's real tough, but this is another setback for his career. I feel sorry for him, and I feel sorry for old friend Anthony Seabold at the Eagles. I think the Melbourne Storm will absolutely flog them. Melbourne 13+.
At Costo Jason, that is the man's Twitter handle. Follow him on Twitter. He speaks so much sense about league people. All right, Broncos, Titans, kind of it is a local derby. Of course, it's a Queensland local derby. Both teams coming off a bye.
Well, there's a lot of speculation today. The big talk in Sydney media today in the post-Origin wash-up with player movement is that Ben Hunt, who doesn't want to stay at the Dragons, may now be going to the Broncos.
Go
the Broncos
on.
Have expressed
Bring him back. Bring him back. Lachlan's dying on the floor in there. He's dying on the floor in there. Bring him back to the Broncos.
Well, the Broncos have expressed interest in Ben Hunt, and he's still got some good football to give. He was initially keen to go to the Gold Coast, but the big story the day after Origin 2 was the sacking of Justin Holbrook at the Gold Coast.
Yeah.
And it hasn't gone down well. And Mel Meninga, seemingly blindsided, he's a big in the wheel on the Gold Coast, but the way to handle that has raised questions about how the place is managed, obviously, and not by me, but other people in the commentariat. They have been pointing the finger, and Justin Holbrook, you can see from his body language and the quotes that I read in the press, he's absolutely gutted by what happened. He see it coming. I don't know who did see it coming, if anyone saw it coming. But the Gold Coast have lost their coach during the week. I don't think that's really good for them. Brisbane are much more settled. It's a big local derby. It should be an interesting game, regardless of the circumstances. But I'm expecting the Broncos 13+.
Yeah, you'd have to, wouldn't you? All right, then. It's the
I think the Cowboys are angry.
They were angry.
I think the Cowboys are angry.
And I tell you, if they turn up and play the Rabbits angry, I mean, if they turn up and play the way they did against the Penrith Panthers, what an unusual season they have in the Cowboys.
Very unusual season, bizarre. You know, I mean, some shocking results and some breathtaking scorelines that they've been able to conjure up. So, you know, I mean, I had my doubt. You know, I mean, there's time there that we're gone. But you know, where there's life, there's hope.
Jason, you've won 7 and lost 8. You aren't out of the race yet. I mean, if you get on a roll and win 3 or 4 games, who knows, mate?
Well, that's right. And so, I mean, I have to think that my Cowboys can get the job done and keep it going. So, probably not with great confidence. They have served up some rubbish this year, but I suspect some of their players will come back from Origin better players. And, look at Robson, for example. He got capped by the Blues. He was on a hiding to nothing, but he'll come as a better player, and that will warm the heart of Todd Payton. So, Cowboys 1-12.
Finally, Roosters, Raiders, and look, as bitter a Blues fan as I am, I got to say, this guy, Lindsay Collins, who props course for the Roosters along with Jarrod, I mean, what a 1-2 punch that is up front for those guys. Roosters, Raiders are just ahead of them on the table. It's 8 and 9 people playing here, both on 18 points. It's just a points differential, and only split by 17 points. 7 and 7 Roosters, 8 and 6 the Raiders. That guy, Lindsay Collins, he'll back up, won't he? What a player at the moment. He must be the best prop in the competition. Would you agree?
Well, he's a player that, pardon me, he's a player that a lot of people probably aren't convinced is your frontline forward in the game. But what he did in game one, out-jumping Tedesco, his subsequent work for Queensland, but he's got to back it up for the Roosters. The Roosters, what the hell's going on there? We had coaches under the pump. Holbrook's been punted at the Gold Coast. I'm not saying that they should be punting Robinson, but geez, I'll tell you what, Marty, how many more games can the Roosters lose? Uncle Nick, who's the chairman, I'm talking about Nick Politis, you wonder how much patience he is showing at the moment. They invest a lot of coin, a lot of resources into that club. They've got an amazing facility now, that home ground and the high performance unit, or whatever they call it, at Moore Park, the former Sydney Football Stadium. And guess what? Have a look at them on the table. Very mediocre. I'm expecting them at some stage to turn it around. Can they do it this week? I'm going to give them the benefit of doubt. Tedesco will be thinking, how much more of this can I take? Losing with the State of Origin series back to back, that's a bitter pill to swallow. I was waiting for it the other day. It didn't happen. I'm going to give him another chance. I'm going to give the Roosters another chance. I'm going to tip the Roosters 1-12.
Big Bob's texted in here. You're going to love this. He says, the Eels are on a winning streak. They look like they're going to lift the trophy again. Now, I'll do a knock-knock. Well, knock-knock. Who's there? The trophy. What trophy? I'm sorry, what trophy was that again? The trophy for turning up and playing, or your mum washed the jerseys? Sorry, Jace, you know more about league than me. What trophy is he talking about?
I reckon you've just lifted something from the library, from the archives from 1987.
I love it when people have imaginary trophies, don't they? Oh, my team won something. My team won something. You don't get a trophy for turning up, mate. Tell us about the Women's Origin last night. Why was that special?
Well, it was special because it was a record crowd for Women's Rugby League. 18,000 plus at Queensland Country Bank Stadium. That's the modern-day home of the Cowboys. It's an amazing facility. If your audience, people have not been to North Queensland and you get a chance to go to a rock concert or a game at Queensland Country Bank Stadium, it's a great place. You can walk across Ross Creek to the city and catch the ferry to Magnetic Island, the beautiful time of the year, this time of the year. And look, well done to the Blues because they got the job done last night, and Cassie Apps becoming the most capped New South Wales women's player of all time. So congratulations to her. And she's with the club that I'm involved with now, the West Tigers, with the NRLW program under coach Brett Camorley. So it's a great honour for Cassie. And the Blues getting the victory last night. But because of the nature of the series, a 2-game series on aggregate, Queensland came away with the trophy. And look, Queensland aren't going to complain because we've got the shield. But, the girls do deserve a 3-game series. And there was plenty of people singing from that hymn sheet last night in the presence of Andrew Abdo, who presented the trophy. So Queensland on aggregate lifting the shield. And, Upton at the back, she was as good as anyone for the Maroons. She was fantastic. And even though they didn't get the win in front of their home crowd, they win the series on aggregate, 1 game apiece in the series. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. But I'll tell you what, the women's game, continuing to grow, continuing to prosper. and that's fantastic. And I'm sure Women's Rugby League will continue on that great journey in the years to come on both sides of the Tasman, and even further afield with the women's game taking off in places like East Africa, West Africa, and in other parts of Europe, and away we go.
Finally, mate, and quickly, and look, we've had a text come in saying, I won't say who, loves listening to you on Fridays and so forth, and is going to follow you on the Twitter, saying, geez, Jace gets around. He's here, there, everywhere. What do you do for a crust? He says, ask him what he does for a job. What do you do, Jace?
Well, I do a few things. I mean, I'm the government relations manager for NRL club, the West Tigers. So I look after the engagement of our elected representatives across all three tiers of government for the betterment of our club and enhancing our brand in terms of partnering with government where we can to open up pathways, particularly for players or for people in communities in our catchment, obviously, from the inner west of Sydney, from around Leichhardt and the old Balmain area, right through to southwestern Sydney, pushing out to Campbelltown and Camden, which is the home spiritually of the West Magpies, the other half of our joint venture. So that keeps us busy, but we're also calling rugby league where we can. Am I calling NRL on a regular basis? No. Would I like to?
Yeah,
yes.
Of course, and you should be. Yes.
Absolutely. But last weekend, I'm not one to sit out on the sideline and sulk and say, if I'm not calling NRL, I'm not going to call it all. So last weekend, for example, I was with my Indigenous brothers very close to the Australian-Papua New Guinea border, calling the Island of Origin Rugby League involving the Torres Strait Island communities. It was a magnificent carnival, very unique carnival. The players and the fans literally converging on one particular island, Bardu, by dinghy, by outboard-powered dinghy, coming for hours, traversing the seas in that stretch of water between Australia's mainland and Papua New Guinea. A couple of months ago, in answer to your question, I was in Fiji with our brothers over there, calling the Melanesian Cup between the top team from Papua New Guinea that won the Digicel Cup last year. That's the Hela Wigman, as in the wigs that they wear in Papua New Guinea, hence the moniker, the name, the Hela Wigman from the Hela province, up against the Fijian Western Maroons, the winning state of origin team in that part of the world from last year. So a friend of Pacific Rugby League, and something I wear proudly, that title. But look, where there's a game I'll call. I've called in 10 countries. I still, as you can see, as you can probably tell, my passion for the game, the international game, shows no signs of waning. And God willing, we'll get to call a lot of rugby league for a long time to come. And I can't wait, because I haven't been in New Zealand for 13 years.
Wow.
I'm hoping to break that drought, and I can promise you, brother, that we'll catch up for a sherbet or two in the city of Sales if that happens. And I'm sure it will happen. It's just a matter of time.
Saw you eating a crayfish the size of a small cow. Please tell me you didn't eat turtle, though, mate. You can't eat little turtle whittles.
No, there's no turtle, but we did have crayfish on Sunday night after the tournament, and it was delicious with a bit of chilli.
Jace, love talking to you every single Friday, mate. That is 8 to the hour. It is.